That's the reaction I wanted. So, hello everyone. This is our presentation. I'm here representing Camila FREITAS and Leandro Lima as well. And this is No Wishes for Kids in Brazil, Repercussions of Law 15-211 in Genshin Impact. All of the images that you're going to see, they're created by Brazilian artists, and they're all inspired in the last World Cup. So this is something that you're going to see. So a little bit about the authors, and also I'd like to thank them very much for collaborating. So I am a professor at the University of the Fraser Valley in Canada, but I am Brazilian. And me and Camila, we both have a PhD from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. Camila she is a professor at the Federal University of Paraíba. And she is an expert on Brazilian gambling culture, so if you have any specific questions, that's over to her. She's on Discord. And she talks a lot about the ludic experience and the fundamental essence of imagination behind why we play. And Leandro has a PhD from King's College London, and he is a professor in the Federal University of Minas Gerais. And he leads the Joguinho Research Group, and he specializes in industry, player cultures, and the public. And we're all part of the Laboratory of Digital Artifacts that is coordinated by Professor Sueli Fragoso, which you probably know. A little bit about what we're going to be talking today. So first, I'll talk about the context. I think context is really important, especially when it comes to Latin America. Not everyone is aware about, how this law was created, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Then our main objectives, our background, methodology, results, and some next steps. So a little bit of context. In 2025, Brazil ranks as the world's 5th largest online betting market and the 9th largest generator of revenue in the global gaming industry. So that's the relevance of this market. It's a pretty big one. And related to this law, this law was sanctioned fairly recently, and it's going to be taking effect in March 2026. So, publishers, they don't have a lot of time to adapt to the law, but it is the first law of its kind in the Americas. And Brazil was known for, having the first statute for child and adolescents in Latin America as well. It was sanctioned in the 1990s. Before that, for example, throwing a shoe at your kid, it was just parenting style. So yeah, right now, after the 90s, those things were criminalized effectively. So this digital statute is also this first of its kind in Americas. This is why it's so relevant. And a couple of core mandates. So there is a strict age verification. So you cannot self-declare as a certain age anymore. And there are some default privacy settings and a ban on loot box for minors. So for example, profiling is also not something that is allowed for minors. Penalties, fines up to 50 million reais, which is roughly 9.3 million US dollars per violation. So pretty hefty. So our objectives here is just to first identify how the Brazilian community interprets, contests, and re-signifies regulatory narratives. We are not going into the law very deeply, just because we're not lawyers. We are social science researchers. But we're looking to compare also Genshin Impact's modernizations and terms of service against the law. So we're looking into the terms of service, the one that no one reads, we had to, for the sake of research. The focus on Genshin Impact is due to its relevance in terms of users. So we do have a very significant audience. And also the Wishes gacha system. We don't know how many minors play the game, but we're looking at how people are discussing that as well. So a couple of background. Yeah, we're looking at gambling elements, gacha systems, and loot boxes. So just all of that we already talked here, so I'm not going to be repeating myself. But also, we want to look into the psychological impact that we talked earlier as well. We saw lots of amazing presentations about that. So those are some of the backgrounds that we're looking for, like how loot boxes are akin to gambling, even though, loot boxes are not classified as gambling per Brazilian law. There are lots of parallels that could be interpreted, especially with the new law. And there's like some exploitative monetized systems that we know are present in those games. And there's also gambling problems and loot box spending. We consider as well gamification as a process. So first, there is a speculative consumption habit over here, and also considering that Genshin Impact has a media mix approach that is very similar to other games of the same sort, that has a central focus on the game, but they do produce lots of other products around. And focusing more on the Brazilian legal and ethical context, we're looking at first the incompatibility of loot boxes and the financial and legal order. So this is something that I want to talk a little bit more, because loot boxes, as I mentioned, they do not enter the definition, the Brazilian definition of gambling. So gambling was prohibited in Brazil for a long time, and it's now permitted at some point. And one of the things that is interesting about this is that now, with this law, it could be framed as gambling. So it is a very ambiguous and gray area, because this law kind of like changes the interpretation, and as long as there is a precedent created, it could be considered as gambling. So yeah, and legislation is absolutely outdated. Our legislation on gambling is from the 80s. So yeah, no internet, no, so how can you interpret digital products in that sense? It's impossible. And we also consider games in Brazil have the highest taxation in the world, up to 70%. So games are very expensive for Brazilians. Yeah, we spend lots of money on games, and a lot of it is taxed. And if we are looking to tax loot boxes specifically, or like in-game purchases, there is a chance that there is a double taxation. So this creates a huge financial problem, and it's probably going to be demotivating for, industries to establish themselves in the country as well. So this is why they're kind of like ignoring that they need to tax loot boxes. And Brazil does not have a strong digital regulation. So it is impossible, structurally impossible to regulate it. So there is no judicial foundation to tax loot boxes because they fall into this gray area. So it is a very complicated conundrum when it comes to that. So lots of outdated, and there is a lot of political interest as well. So you probably know, but I don't know, maybe some context. There is lots of corruption in Brazil, just in case you didn't know. But yeah, and a lot of the politicians, they are heavily involved in lobbying, especially betting games. So yeah, it is hard because they're not moving a finger because they're benefiting from it. We're also talking about compulsory gamification. So yeah, definitely those games, they make you engage in those activities because, that's the core of its game. And there's also persuasive design in digital betting platforms. The design of the platform is made for that. So what did we do? So first, we did a close reading of the law and compared to the mechanics and terms of service. So we played the game a little bit. I'm not like a very hardcore player, so yeah, a lot of the jokes I couldn't understand. But I did get like a lot of the design and how the mechanics worked. And the terms of service were also something that we compared. What kind of mentions to the law we could see, right? Well, spoiler alert, we didn't see anything. It doesn't comply. But yeah, but there's more to that. And also, we conducted an ethnography. So we selected 2 YouTube videos and 4 subreddits. Most of them, they were in Portuguese, and they were publicly available. There is only one subreddit that was in English that wasn't like Brazilian gamers exclusively discussing. We chose them based on popularity and how close they were talking to Genshin Impact specifically, and how it was affected or it will be affected by the law. We started off with a human-led thematic analysis, so we read and we understood that there were some prominent themes over there And we cross-validated with AI, so NotebookLM and DeepSeek, we used it to consider like what's the percentage of mentions of each topic that we found over there. So some results. So one of the things, looking at the terms of service, looking at the law, we understand that the wishes system is, classified as the prohibited reward boxes. So that was the specific feature that is being targeted because they involve payment for random advantages without prior knowledge of content, which is the general, definition of a loot box. There are some major points of non-compliance. So yeah, the spoiler, but now we're going to know how we are not complying. So first one is paid loot boxes are currently accessible to minors, so anyone can access it, anyone can get it. The game relies on self-declaration of age, which is explicitly forbidden in Article 9 of the new law. So this is something that they should change if they want to comply with the law. It's not self-declared. And also illegal profiles. So the game's privacy policy, we also looked at, acknowledge that profiling for commercial advertising is something that is prohibited, but it's currently done. So yeah, if you have your profile there, if you have your age, they're able to target you with specific advertising, and that's something that is illegal for the specific law that they should change. So when looking at the comments, we looked into a few theme recurrences. Please note that, yeah, we're not that bad at math. The total does exceed 100%, but that's because comments often address like multiple themes simultaneously. So the most prominent one was legal and technical adaptation. I'm going to talk more about that too. Critique of legislative intent and responsibility and effectiveness as well. So a couple of community themes that we saw. So people were debating gacha versus loot box definitions and predicting corporate workarounds. So we saw a lot of people debating whether that was even a distinction. They were predicting that, basically the company would just make it plus 18, and that's all. And there's a lot of impacts on other games like FIFA or Counter-Strike, or even like Magic the Gathering and physical boosters. Also, there was some cynicism regarding motives, considering this law being a smokescreen for censorship or political maneuvers. Brazil is a heavily polarized country right now between left and right. So we understand that this was also very heavily focused on this kind of discourse. And also, they were also blaming irresponsible parents. This was something that we saw a lot. Parents, they have no clue what their kids are doing online, and they don't really care. So unless they're not spending their money. And there's the ease of bypassing. Like we saw in Roblox, they implemented the facial recognition, and people are using action figures to pass the facial recognition, and it's working. So it's really easy to bypass, right? Players will argue that Genshin is not a loot box because of the PD system. They would say that the government is very hypercritical because they're kind of like, yeah, we are ignoring, gambling apps and sporting bets. And they're targeting those games. Why? Why is that specifically? And there is a predictive, as I mentioned, evasion. Players believe that the law will have no practical effect because they will just use VPNs or anything else. So people consider this is also a threat to anonymity and a tool for state control before the elections, because there is a belief on the far right that the leftist party will turn Brazil into Venezuela, which is interesting. But yeah, people are also using political slang, so referring to the current president, and also to an influencer called Falca, which was heavily influential in those laws. We can talk later about him. He's very important, but yeah. But the next steps here, yeah, because we're not experts on, law. We will interview legal stakeholders. We're going to interview lawyers and people who are specialized in game laws. And we're going to identify those gaps, like kind of like map the distance between the interpretations and community understandings to what's the reality. And for developers, they will have to implement a third party that is reliable for age gating, cease profiling minors for advertising, and submit to Brazilian jurisdiction and establish a local legal representative, because currently jurisdiction is in Singapore, so yeah, nothing can be done. So that's all, and yeah, I'm looking forward to our questions.
Thanks very much. Any questions from the audience?
Thank you for a lovely talk. I don't expect you to have an answer for this, but I would be interested to hear your opinions, and that is, how do you change a law? And it's not just as simple as telling them that your law is wrong. There must be many other kind of facets into it. I'd be interested to hear the Brazilian perspective. Thanks.
Yeah, how do you change the law? Yeah, the law is fundamentally wrong because of the lack of technical consultation, but I don't think that this is an honest mistake. I think this is a deliberate breach that has lots of particular interests of political parties. So I don't think this is just honest. This is like, oh, we just don't know. It's a deliberate action to create those breaches so people can benefit from, the tax evasion, for example, or from not taking responsibility. So yeah, I do believe that it's deliberate, and public pressure can help. But this is a discussion that has been ongoing for a long time, and I don't really think that it's going to be very enforceable. Yeah, I'm very pessimistic. I'm sorry.
Thanks very much. Any other questions?
Hello, thank you very much for the presentation. I found it very interesting. In terms of compliance, do you see Brazil as a big enough market for gacha games for them to bother, or will they just close up shop and say this is too much effort, we're just not going to bother?
I think it's a big market, but if it becomes too complicated, they will probably withdraw from the market. Because, if you compare it to the Chinese market, it's not like very profitable. So if it becomes too complicated, they're going to just withdraw. And we've seen that with other games before. So I think this is why the law is so permissive and has so many holes and problems, because they don't want those companies to leave the country. So what they're trying to do is create those loopholes on purpose, because they don't want those companies to withdraw. But I don't think that they would make a lot of changes or any significant changes or put any effort into the country. Yeah, just to stay there.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. See how much time we've got left.
We have time.
Got time for another question.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation, and very surprising. Like, Leandro is the supervisor of my master thesis, so please say hi to him. And the case about China is I think instead of focusing on the loot box so much, if you're registered as a minor, they just directly limit your gameplay time. So because they think there might be other elements that might not be appropriate for kids, for example, being too erotic or violent. So my question is focusing on loot box so much, would it make people neglect the other elements that might be inappropriate for kids in Brazil? Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, and I think so. Yeah, it is just focused on loot boxes, which is wrong. We do have a classification system just like in Australia, but it's not well implemented at all. So yeah, there's no clear directive for that. I do believe that Brazil does not censor content as much It's not like the general directive. So yeah, kids can access things. There is the general like classification, usually at the parents' discretion. So I don't think that there is a general interest. There is a moral interest, especially from the far right, to protect the kids, but definitely not something that is enforced. I don't really think that this is something that is enforced. It should, but it's not. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you.